You know that feeling when you pick up a book and you're expecting a standard story, right? Like a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, just a regular linear narrative.
Exactly. But instead, it feels like the book is, well, it feels like it's actively reading you. It's that rare, almost unsettling sensation where the text just completely defies categorization.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It completely upends the traditional relationship between the creator and the audience.
Right. You sit down thinking you're just going to, kill a few hours on a Sunday afternoon, and suddenly you realize the pages aren't just trying to entertain you. They're actively trying to change the person holding them.
Which is wild, because usually you sit back and just consume a story. But in the kind of text you're describing, you are forced to go from being a passive consumer to an active participant.
I mean, the book essentially becomes an environment you step into. Which brings us to the wild stack of sources we have in front of us today for this deep dive.
And it really is quite a stack.
It is. We are looking at excerpts, chapter drafts, and personal notes from a work by author Terry Lausch, and it's called The FLOWERBORN.
Such an interesting title, too.
Totally. And our main mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly what genre of literature this novel falls into. Because to do that, we have to trace the narrative outline of the story and tackle a massive, almost unbelievable claim the author makes.
Right, the claim about what the book actually is.
Yeah. He claims that this novel isn't just a book. He says it is a literal ceremonial act and an initiation, and not just for the author himself or his main character, but for you, the listener, the reader. Okay, let's unpack this.
It is a staggering claim to make in the 21st century. I mean, truly. But to really grasp what he's attempting, we have to look back at how humans used to interact with stories.
Like in older traditions.
Exactly. In wisdom cultures throughout history, storytelling has never been treated merely as entertainment. It was a highly functional, vital tool.
So it had a real practical purpose.
Very much so. Indigenous cultures, for instance, have always used oral traditions and stories to pass down survival rituals or to connect the community with their ancestors. And crucially, it was used to place the nervous system of the listener into a regulated, higher spiritual state.
Wow, so physiological effect, not just a mental one.
Right. And what the FLOWERBORN appears to be doing is attempting to resurrect this ancient visceral technology of storytelling, but custom tailoring it for the modern, anxious American reader.
I love that you call it a technology, because the moment you try to pin down the genre of this book, the machinery of it just slips right through your fingers.
It really does resist classification.
It does. I'm looking at the author's own introduction here, and he explicitly states that the text is an autobiography. But then he immediately qualifies that by saying it's an autobiography told in the traditional or indigenous method of shamanic storytelling.
Which is a huge distinction.
Right. That alone tells me to just throw my normal expectations out the window.
What's fascinating here is how that single phrase, shamanic storytelling, signals a complete departure from literal chronological facts.
So he's not giving us his high school transcript.
Exactly. Yeah. Shamanic traditions operate on a completely different axis of truth. They aren't concerned with the dates you attended school or what you ate for breakfast. They are concerned with the topography of your soul.
The topography of your soul, wow.
Yeah, so a more accurate modern classification for this might be a mythic autobiography.
A mythic autobiography. I really like that term, because reading this book feels like walking through a literary escape room where the walls just keep shifting depending on where you look.
That is a perfect analogy.
It blends elements of past lives, present reality, and future lives all into one shared narrative space. Like in one chapter, you are dealing with Native American historical figures.
Right. He brings in some very prominent figures.
Yeah, you've got Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, and Black Elk walking around. And then seamlessly, the text weaves in Tibetan Buddhist teachings.
It's quite the synthesis.
It really is. It references the real-life Tibetan master Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who famously brought a lot of these Eastern teachings to the West. And it brings in figures like the Red Dakini Vajrayogini. She's this fierce, fiery female manifestation of spiritual energy in Buddhism.
And the synthesis doesn't stop with Native American and Eastern philosophies either.
Yeah.
The author incorporates Western occultism into the mix as well.
Oh, right. The occult stuff.
Yeah, you have references to King Solomon, the archetypes of the tarot, the storytelling framing of the Arabian Nights, and all of this is existing alongside these incredibly deep dives into Jungian psychology.
Which is just a massive melting pot of ideas.
It is. The author actually coins a term for this wild synthesis. He calls it the tantric wisdom of the West.
The tantric wisdom of the West, which sounds incredibly dense, but the way it's written is just wild because, again, he claims this is an autobiography.
Right. You have to keep remembering that framing.
Yes. But then you turn the page and meet characters like a 9-year-old Oglala Sioux shaman named Hook Sioux, who literally falls from the sky from the Lakota Dakota Star Nation.
Not your typical autobiographical event.
Not at all. Or you are introduced to the protagonist, whose body is described as being made of perfume and silk, and he wakes up inside a rainbow. I mean, how are we supposed to process descriptions like that without just assuming it's a standard fantasy novel?
Well, that's where understanding the mechanism of a mythic autobiography becomes essential. Think of it like a map maker, right?
Okay, a map maker.
A normal autobiographer is a map maker drawing the physical continents, cities, roads, historical dates. But an author writing a mythic autobiography is mapping their internal psychological and spiritual landscape as if it were a physical world.
So the inside becomes the outside.
Exactly. The abstract emotions, the childhood traumas, the spiritual awakenings, they are personified. They become the actual characters, the bizarre landscapes, the demons, and the gods that populate the text.
So it's very literal, but in a psychological sense.
Yes. So when he says a body is made of perfume and silk, he isn't giving you a physical description. He is giving you an energetic state of being.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. So if this genre is essentially a spiritual vehicle rather than a standard linear narrative, we should probably look at what is actually happening to the main character driving this vehicle.
I think that's the natural next step.
Right. So the protagonist is named Blue Sun, or sometimes referred to as Blue Sunborn, and the text labels him a rainbow earth warrior.
And if we look closely at how the author constructs Blue Sun, we see that energetic mapping at work again.
The perfume and silk kind of stuff.
Similar, yeah. The text says, Blue Sun's body is formed from precious healing stones, and his blood is actually water from a sacred river on the planet Venus. His eyes are mirrored reflections of the sun.
Which sounds beautiful, but it also gives him a very heavy burden in the story. Blue Sun has a very specific, monumental narrative task.
A massive undertaking.
He is ordered to seal the gates of something called the Blood River, and he has to do it alongside the historical figure Sitting Bull. And I want to pause on this blood river concept because the text describes it as a literal bleeding wound in Mother Earth.
Right, and it operates as a powerful metaphor for collective trauma. In the context of the story, the blood river is a wound that affects all living beings born from the earth.
Like a shared psychic pain.
Precisely. It's the accumulated pain of history, of violence, of our disconnection from nature.
And honestly, you don't even need to be reading a mythic autobiography to understand what a blood river feels like. I mean, any listener right now who has spent 10 minutes doom scrolling on their phone can relate.
Oh, absolutely. That constant influx of negative news.
Exactly. Absorbing the 2047 cycle of global crises, or just feeling that ambient, heavy anxiety that seems to hang in the air of modern cities, that is the blood river. It's that collective, heavy psychic toll we all carry just by participating in the modern world.
That is an excellent connection. And in the narrative, Blue Sun can't just walk up to this wound to put a bandage on it or shut a physical gate.
It's not a simple mechanical fix.
No, not at all. To seal the blood river, he has to undergo a profound personal initiation. He has to become what the text calls a roadman.
Which the notes explain is essentially a title for a priest, specifically within the context of the Native American church. He has to be spiritually authorized to do this healing work.
Right. It requires a formal, sacred authorization.
And this initiation ceremony is performed by none other than Crazy Horse. During the ceremony, Crazy Horse forces Blue Sun to look into an object called a mirror mandala.
We should unpack the psychology of that object because it's a very loaded image. A mandala in various Eastern traditions is a complex geometric spiritual symbol representing the entire universe and our place within it.
Like a cosmic map.
Exactly. And a mirror obviously reflects the self. By combining them, the text is suggesting that the entire universe is ultimately a reflection of your own internal state.
And what Blue Sun sees in that reflection is terrifying. He looks into the mirror mandala and he doesn't see his own face. He sees this monstrous entity called the Dragon of the Mountain Meadow.
A very evocative name.
It is. And it's a monster he has been terrified of since he was a little kid. But as he forces himself to stare at it, the realization hits him. The dragon is actually himself.
A classic moment of revelation.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If Blue Sun is essentially the avatar for the author, Terry Lausch, is this scene with the dragon just a fancy fantasy trope?
Like a standard hero's journey beat.
Right. Are we just doing the standard hero faces the scary monster routine, or is the author actually using the physical act of typing this book to perform a literal psychological exorcism on his own mind?
It is absolutely the latter, and we know this because the text explicitly hands us the psychological vocabulary to understand it.
He spells it out for us.
He does. The author references the Jungian concept of individuation. In the psychology of Carl Jung, individuation is the lifelong process of integrating all the fragmented parts of your mind into one whole, healthy self.
So bringing the conscious and unconscious together.
Yes. Both the conscious parts you like and the unconscious parts you hide. And the absolute hardest part of individuation is confronting what Jung called the shadow.
Which is all the stuff we repress, right? The anger, the shame, the selfishness.
Precisely. The shadow contains all the dark, terrifying, or socially unacceptable aspects of ourselves that we just refuse to acknowledge.
It's just easier to ignore them.
It is human nature to project our shadow outward. We want to believe the monster is external. It's society, it's our boss, it's a literal dragon.
Anything but us.
Right. But the dragon of the mountain meadow isn't an external monster to be slain with a sword. It is a part of the self that must be integrated.
So by forcing his avatar, Blue Sun, to look into the mirror mandala and realize the monster is just his own reflection, the author is forcing his own brain to process his trauma.
Yes. Think about the mechanics of writing this scene. The author isn't just daydreaming. He is actively translating his deepest fears into language, organizing them into a narrative, and forcing his proxy to sit with them.
That sounds intense.
It is. In the personal notes provided, the author writes, "I willingly choose to take the journey through the darkness of my unconscious. It's a form of narrative exposure therapy."
Wow, narrative exposure therapy.
The act of writing the story isn't just describing a healing process. The writing itself is the mechanism of healing. The book is his personal medicine.
I'm looking at a quote from that exact scene right now. He writes that when Blue Sun finally realizes the dragon is himself, he is no longer ashamed at what he sees.
He finds acceptance.
Yeah, he doesn't attack it. He just spends time in eloquent silence looking at what he was too afraid to look at his entire life. There is something incredibly vulnerable about publishing that for the world to see.
It is a profound act of vulnerability. It demonstrates how an artist can use their craft to repair their own psyche. But while it is fascinating to analyze what the author is doing for his own mental health, the most radical and controversial aspect of this text isn't his personal healing.
Right, it's what he expects from us.
Exactly. It's what the text demands of the person holding the physical book.
This is the part that really tripped me up, because the novel doesn't just sit there passively. It actively attempts to initiate the reader. It tries to turn the mundane act of reading a paperback into an actual living ceremony.
Which the text calls the ceremony of names.
Yes, yeah, the ceremony of names.
This raises an important question about the nature of language itself, because here we cross the boundary from literature into ritual.
It stops being just a story.
Right. The author makes a foundational claim that words are not just abstract, dead symbols printed on a page. He writes that words are spirits born from light and formed in the fire.
Spirits born from light, that's heavy.
It is. He is claiming that language is alive, and that the specific arrangement of his sentences can act as a key to literally open the unborn light inside your heart.
And he doesn't just make the claim either. He gives you an instruction manual for how to make it happen.
The reading guide he includes is fascinating.
Yeah, early in the book, he provides explicit directions for the reader. He says that as you read, if you encounter a story, a metaphor, or even just a sentence that makes no logical sense, something that seems totally contradictory to your modern rational mind, you are forbidden from trying to intellectualize it.
Which goes against everything we are taught in school about reading comprehension.
Completely. The instructions say that when your brain gets confused, you need to pause the reading, take a deep breath, actively let go of the intellectual concept that your brain is trying to sell.
Just drop the analysis completely.
Exactly. You are supposed to feel the physical earth below your feet and just follow the emotional energy of the words.
I want to break down the mechanics of why he's asking the reader to do this. He is essentially giving you a meditation instruction disguised as a reading guide.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he knows his prose is strange and nonlinear. He is basically weaponizing cognitive dissonance.
Weaponizing it how?
Well, when you read a sentence that breaks logical rules, your analytical brain naturally stalls out. It tries to solve the puzzle. By instructing you to breathe and feel the ground exactly at the moment your brain stalls, he is actively short-circuiting your intellect.
So he's forcing you out of your head.
Yes, he's forcing you to drop into your physical body.
So the confusion isn't a flaw in the writing, it's a feature.
Exactly. I often compare this process to a physical sweat lodge used in various indigenous traditions.
Oh, like the intense heat breaking you down.
Precisely. In a sweat lodge, the intense physical heat is used to break down the body's normal defenses and ego, allowing for a deeper spiritual release. Here, the author is using the psychological heat of confusing mythic prose to break down your mental defenses.
That's a great comparison.
The goal of this ceremony of names isn't to impart historical facts or entertain you with a linear plot. The text explicitly states its goal is to invoke a spirit of emotional honesty.
Emotional honesty.
Right. It's designed to strip away your analytical armor so you can discover your own magic.
Okay, let me push back on this, though, because as much as I appreciate the depth of that, we live in a society that treats reading primarily as a transaction for entertainment.
We definitely do.
We read on the subway or, while waiting in line for coffee. Can a paperback book actually induce a higher spiritual state in a modern American culture that is so chronically distracted? Isn't it incredibly presumptuous for an author to declare that their novel is a sacred ceremony?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the accusation of presumption only really makes sense from our modern Western perspective, where we've divorced art from function.
Because we think of a book as just a product.
Exactly. But the author is attempting something he calls an American tantra, and understanding that word tantra is the key to why he believes this can work for a distracted modern reader.
How is he defining tantra in the context of an American city, though?
In the Tibetan Buddhist sense that the author references, tantra isn't about escaping to a quiet mountaintop to meditate.
It's not about isolation.
No, it is about using the raw, messy, chaotic energy of everyday life as the very fuel for your spiritual awakening. It's about using your neuroses, your daily anxieties, your mundane desires.
Using the messiness itself.
Yes. The author is looking at an unconscious, highly anxious American culture, a culture running on a highway of anxiety, which he vividly describes from a childhood memory in the text, and he's offering a specific remedy.
I see. He writes that his words are specifically meant to awaken this city. It's like he's trying to transplant this ancient, earth-based shamanic wisdom directly into the concrete and the neon lights of modern life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
He talks in the text about finding profound magic in a cup of espresso, or discovering deep spiritual truth in the simple feeling of urban loneliness. He's saying you don't need a sweat lodge. The ceremony isn't something that happens in a temple far away. It happens right where you're sitting, holding the book.
That is the core of his thesis. The text literally tells the reader, there is nothing to do. The ceremony is you.
The ceremony is you. Wow.
You don't need to travel to find the sacred. The reader's own mind and body become the talisman. The reader is the physical site of the initiation.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground here today.
We really have.
We've talked about shamanic storytelling, the tantric wisdom of the West, the Jungian shadow, and a protagonist made of precious stones trying to heal the collective trauma of the earth. But how does this abstract literary deep dive connect back to you, the listener, in your actual day-to-day life?
I think it comes back to the realization that we are all constantly participating in ceremonies, whether we are conscious of them or not.
Exactly. I think the core takeaway here, even if you never actually pick up a copy of The FLOWERBORN, is about that concept of emotional honesty.
Being truthful with ourselves.
Right. It's about waking up to the fact that the media we consume, the books, the movies, the deep dives playing in our ears right now, they aren't just passing the time, they are actively shaping our internal landscape.
They leave a mark on us.
They do. They are feeding the characters in our own personal mythic autobiography. Every piece of media is populating your own mirror mandala.
And we all have a dragon of the mountain meadow. Every single person listening has an aspect of themselves, a past trauma, or a deep-seated fear that they are terrified to look at in the mirror.
But what this deep dive suggests is that we also have the capacity to view our own lives not as a series of stressful, mundane routines, but as what the text calls ordinary magic.
Ordinary magic. I love that phrase.
We have the ability to sit with our own fears. We have the power to not turn away from the mirror and to realize that our own internal darkness isn't a monster trying to destroy us, but just a fractured part of ourselves waiting for us to finally integrate it. It's about finding the courage to be emotionally honest with your own reflection.
It completely reframes how we experience our own struggles. The author tells his reader that when the story becomes confusing or contradictory, they shouldn't try to intellectualize it, but instead drop into their physical body, let go of the concept, and just feel the earth beneath them.
It's a total paradigm shift.
It leaves you with a fascinating paradigm shift. It makes you wonder how much of the ambient anxiety and profound confusion we experience in our everyday lives isn't actually a logical problem to be solved by our overworked brains.
That's a great question.
What if that confusion is actually an invitation to step out of our heads, stop intellectualizing our pain, and finally enter the ceremony of our own lives?